Welcome back to Chris and Retro. Tonight's video was intended to be recorded yesterday and probably the day before that. I had a milestone in my life that I wanted to make sure I shared with you guys, and it's taken on a number of different flavors, as typically this journey will. And this video tonight is going to be, I think, a fair amount different than what I originally would have planned. So yesterday was the 5th year mark of my release from my last incarceration and hopefully my last period. But that season represented a lot of grace that my time there was so short at the end when it had the potential of being, 7 years of my life. Really, it was turned out to be a slap on the hand relative to what it could have been. And, for that, I was grateful alone. But going into that, it really wouldn't have amounted to an awful lot had I not been changing everything in my life prior to serving the time I had to clean up everything. I had extended post-release supervision that would have been that existed, but it wouldn't have really mattered an awful lot based on how I was behaving on the last several arrests I'd had. It really was going to take some serious course correction for me to ever have a life that ever mattered or ever had a possibility of mattering for anything, because I was so far gone at that point. Entering into that last season, I was really trying to find a way to make something out of this mess I was in. And so it's from that place, a lot of times I speak with a lot of heart around the subject of recovery and what it takes to get there. And often, many times, the subject matters that I bring up on this show are really me reflecting maybe on a current season I'm going through, and some of the lessons that I've learned in the past that I want to reiterate to you as you go through yours. I really don't think I'm a know-it-all, and I hope it never comes across that way. I've just seen some things, I've lived certain things, and I found certain things to be successful and certain things to consistently fail me. So I wasn't really sure how to approach this video. If you noticed on the channel, there was a community post I put out there that showed a picture of me on that day one, and I was in a lot better shape than I am now, that's for sure. But boy, was I a raggedy looking thing. I had an eye infection in my left eye because the contacts I had that they allowed me to have were pretty beat up, and I was a mess. But anyway, that picture was just a reflection of where it was on day one of what I considered to be in my life, the tactical portion of my life rebuilding. And the sobriety portion had started September 11th of 2017. However, there was a lot more work that had to be done. I was just doing the cleanup from the chaos, and then now the demolition had been done, the site had been cleared, and now the structures of what my life was going to become had to start somewhere. And it started at 12:01 on March 15th, 2018. And then at 7 o'clock in the morning when I got up and started my execution of that plan. So I had plans and I had work I needed to do, and I'll share that with you. But going into this video, I was going to talk about these plans that got me there and a measure of gratitude. And I'll share with you a quick little thing. I was even going to try to show my daughter. Now I'm an older guy, and we've had a surprise in 2021, and this is Nova, and I was trying to get her on the show. That's my little girl. She's my youngest of 4 children, and I was going to try to get her on. She wasn't all that cooperative. I mean, after I did this hat, we were trying to do the video. This is what the original video was going to be. She wanted to wear my hat, so I put her hat on her, and the whole thing was kind of fun. But it turned shortly after this. The reason I'm showing you a still and not the actual video is it was an absolute wrestling match. But she was cute for a minute. She liked herself in the video, and generally she's a good kid. But that's where I was going to start. I was going to talk about all these things that have gone in my life. And then lo and behold, as I find happen an awful lot, and this is why I believe in the spiritual component of recovery, there was some significant elements going on in the works that had been in the works that were going to try to sap the memory of that milestone and the joy that I could have been reflecting on because of how things go on in the life of a recovering person. I believe in the spiritual realm. I've spoke my belief in God on here, but I also believe in the power of Satan as well and what he does try to accomplish in our life through the demonic activities that I believe are our addiction and what they do cause for us in our mental health. And I had a significant event that happened over the last few days that have been really demoralizing in some ways. I even come to you now struggling with how to deal with a lot of these things and, what's the right step forward. Some of them are related to boundaries. How do I do boundaries in love? How do I support and yet at the same time stay healthy and have a hope in a future that I worked to get? And so in that circumstance, it changed the message that I was going to give to you here. So I was going to start as fun. There's my daughter. Here's some fun stuff. And then it just didn't feel right. And so now here we are, me in the middle of what I consider to be a significant spiritual battle, as well as a tactical battle relative to the work I do in my recovery work, and coming to you then, talking about a milestone. So without getting too sidetracked on this, I want to explain to you how this all works out. So you get hit with a big bomb, it starts to really beat you down. And for me and how I think about things, I'm like, man, I worked so hard to get this far. Man, what am I doing here? Why does this keep happening? Why is it that after all this work, things should be okay? You know, why is this happening? And if I reflect back on my story, these types of things happen a lot. And then I could easily go one of things, well, I'm a victim. Everybody's doing this to me. Or I could say, what am I doing wrong, and do the woe is me route. Or I could just recognize that if I truly believe this is a both physical and spiritual journey, I'm going to have both physical and spiritual ailments along the way. And it just happens to be over the last few days, I've had a circumstance in and around my life and close to my family that has put some spiritual pressure on this thing that's been very difficult to deal with and forced some very tough decisions. So why am I bringing all that up? And that doesn't sound like it's an awful lot of gratitude. Well, in fact, it is. And I'll explain to you why. Well, I was going to talk to you about my journey that got me to this place. And what I was going to talk to you about is a significant moment where I got out of that I left incarceration at 12:01 on March 15th, and I marched into the world ahead. And I sat in the car with my father, and I remember him talking to me, and I said, Dad, I know there's something, I'm made for something out of all this. I don't know what it is. And he said, son, I believe you are too. That was a great moment. It's a great celebration. But yet here we are. That was what I was going to kind of reflect on. And then yet here we are. I'm finding that the message is steered a different way. And here's exactly how it's steered. I'll share with you some of the elements of my journey that got me here. But what's important is what I was originally going to share with you is my effort that got me here. And therein lies many of the problems that I run into in my recovery journey, including facing things that I've faced over the last few days. When it becomes my effort and when I isolate and make myself the only star of the show, I struggle. I always struggle. Now, I got a lot of grit and I have a lot of stubborn will, Scottish Welsh blood. Not the brightest bulb. I'm a north-south fighter. I'll go through anything if I feel it doesn't matter. Winning and losing isn't really about, it's not really the winning and losing part. I don't have confidence I'm going to win every fight, but I promise I fight every fight because that's just how I'm wired. But I find that when I have that mentality, I lose sight of what the actual victory was and how it actually played out for real. And so how it played out for real had a lot to do with my community. Who's around me? Who's invested in me? And so the first thing I want to do is express the fact that my community over the last few days has been the reason that I can sit in front of you right now and do this video with perhaps a more healthy context and something that we can reflect on and actually do something more with. So my community is broad, and I think a lot of times I take for granted exactly the reach of people that are interested in me doing well. It's not to say that I have all that much influence, because it's not that. But what I'm finding is that if you're serious about what you're doing here, and recovery really matters to you, and you stand for something more than you, a lot of people that don't really know you that well are interested in you doing well and will contribute to that growth. Now, if I sit here and profess that I have all the answers and I try to share with you every step I've taken to get to where I'm going, there's some value to that to the point, but it only tells part of the story. It alleges that I did it alone, and I did not. Now, there are steps that I've done somewhat alone, and I'll share with you the journey that got me here, I think. We'll see how the video goes. I may not. I'm kind of thinking as we go here, I might not. Who knows? But the community that helped me within the last 2 days, I just want to say thank you, Brian. Thank you, John. Thank you, Mitch. Thank you, Big Oos, for commenting and the comments you make on the show. And thank you to my father. My father's always been there, always through it. We talked last night. I was talking about some of the things and just briefly talking about he's got a surgery coming up and just want to see how he's doing. And I thanked him because his voice in my life and his consistency have been such a tremendous demonstration of how I should have been all the way through, that I thanked him for being that role and being that way. Because a lot of people don't have fathers that support them that way, and mine did. And it still didn't stop me from getting in trouble, even though I appreciate him very much and I'm so thankful for him. Then, yesterday morning, I've got a couple of men in my life that we do a study together online. We kind of look at these passages and read them and make comments about it. And sure enough, it's talking about being a father and how we address, the failures of our fathers. When I have a father that really didn't fail me, but yet, time out, I am that father that failed my kids. So my community is reminding me that there's so much work for me to do within me, but at the same time, they remind me they're there for me to encourage me. They say iron sharpens iron. Well, sharpening iron isn't always about compliments. They build credibility with me because I understand that they're real and that they have good information based on their own struggles. But that community is where my strength's coming from. And so I'm starting to recognize that as I get to the point where I'm going to create this video. And my journey that got me up to that March date that I was talking about 5 years ago was really about the people in my life then that invested in me, that helped me get to a place where I could make sane decisions, or more sane as I possibly can, I guess. And then my trajectory after that has only been in so much that people are willing to invest in me and my willingness to do the things I said I was going to do. And one of those things is make promises and keep them, declare what I'm going to do, and people around you rally. The other part of my community is really you online, and people that I've connected with through this community. I sat last night watching one of my favorite YouTube channels and realizing, man, what I love about that channel is that it is a community. And it really kind of resonated why I'm sharing this message with you today. I mean, I've brought up Hard Intentions on here before, and whether you co-sign what they talk about or whatever else, it doesn't really matter to me what you think about the show. For me, what I appreciate about it is a sense of community. Do I need that sense of community to make friends? Am I that, just desperate? I hope not, but maybe. I'm glad I've got those friends. But the thing is that community resonated with me, and it reminded me that really the reason that why we're stronger is because of the people that we select to surround ourselves with, and their commitments to their lives and their journey, and the things that they're willing to do to invest back in you, and your willingness to invest back in, and that give and take. It's very much like the Alcoholics Anonymous community or NA communities or whatever group that you're a part of, that you receive certain things about that community, but you also keep what you receive because you give it back, if that makes any sense. Your investment back in and what you receive, it's an equal balance. It's an equilibrium that's important for you to continue to grow. And in those communities, they help you thrive. Now, one of the things that was important for me to get here. So I talk about the community, and part of this was just a long, windy way of saying thank you guys for stepping in to my life, and none of them even knew. Like, I'm telling you, there's people I just mentioned, except the only one on there, I think maybe Brian and my father both knew that I was having a couple of days that were really a struggle for me. Everybody else didn't really know, but because I was part of a community that we kind of get each other, we don't have to know somebody else is going through trouble to just appreciate and be present in that community. And it helps you grow just as it is without even having to declare any issue going on. So the first part of this was really just to recognize the community that was around me over the last few days, but also recognize the value of that. And so then I'll get into the journey. And I guess it does make sense for me to do that now. So up to 5 years, I had prior to being released, I had decided I was going to make something called a 90-day life recovery plan. And with it had accountability measures. I was going to be accountable to my father every Friday with my plan. I was going to write down literally every single thing that I had to do, what the due date was. I'd write the notes down. I mean, I was super serious about what this is going to be. I journaled, and I still journal. I even hit the same style of journaling that I've showed you on the show before. This is my journal currently that I'm going through. I'm almost done with it, almost through the pages on it. I've got another one backed up over here. These journals are just my what I call basically my flight log, flight plan for the day. But this plan was really my rigorous dedication to making sure that I would go forward with what I needed to do to rebuild my life when I got out. And it was going to start at 12:01. And I did that. So here we are, March 16th, 2023. And I'll share with you just a few high levels of how I got here. And this is the importance of the plan, but also as I'm learning over these last few days, it wasn't just me. There's a whole host of community people that came around me as this plan was being executed that meant that I could get to a place that I'm at right now. March 2018 to March 2019, in that range, my plan started, and my plan included, and it ultimately turned into this. I had 3 jobs in that season. I worked in a plant making styrofoam plates. I worked at a restaurant, and I worked in an emergency department with overdose patients. Those 3 jobs, while they weren't all together at the same time, they were all together at the same time at a time, but they were pieced together. And then the majority of that time they were in some variation together. I didn't have a vehicle because of some of my issues. I didn't have a vehicle. I couldn't drive. And so that took walking. And where I lived in proximity to all these jobs, I had a bike and the bike got stolen. So I was walking about 160 miles a week. I published a journal guide. I started a blog, which I still have today. I started a podcast called 100 Proof Living, and I started that with a co-host, which is Brian, which is the one I actually just called out. And I started my first my LLC, a small business, because at the time I felt my business acumen and being a convicted felon was not going to ever be used again. I'd never be able to get back in the business. In fact, I was told I was never going to get back in the business. So I figured the only way to apply the business acumen that I had, was to start my own business and then just make it work. And so that's what I did. Um, all those things were just starting. So that was that first year. And then by November of 2019, I had secured a job back in the industry that I once was in as a recruiter. Now, it was because of somebody I used to work with. He was willing to take a shot at me. The reason he was willing to take a shot on me is not because of all the calamity that I had caused. And quite honestly, in the industry that I worked in, my fall had not only the facts of how far I'd fallen apart been out there. You know how the rumor mill goes, they'd become much worse. So I basically went from, alcohol offenses and all kinds of other nonsense, just craziness from drinking, to, I'm sure they probably had me a serial killer somewhere. I mean, that's how that stuff goes. The rumor mill in small industries can happen. And Scott was willing to just say, hey, look, I'll take a shot on you. And he did. So with that, it got my feet wet. I got back in front of people and they could see that I wasn't actually a mess, but it was Scott. My community came to me. By December of 20, I was working as an executive in a behavioral health organization. That was a big win for me to be in an executive position again. And so I did that for a short season, which led an opportunity for me to get right back in the exact industry, doing the exact same things I did before, when I was told that I was never going to be back here. So my current job and the current work I do is 100% back in the industry that I was told I'd never be back in. And for me, that was a big win too. But it all started with a plan. And so the reason I share with you these milestones is certainly, I'm sure some of the dates and stuff are a little off, but I wanted to show you just directionally kind of where things were at. Directionally, it was a lot of work, and it took a plan. It took sticking to that plan and making sure it works. But it wasn't about me, and it wasn't about all I did. I put the effort in, but there was a lot of people along the way that invested in me and gave me a shot, including my current employer. Employment certainly isn't all the picture, but for me, it was one of the milestones that I measured as basically somebody told me I couldn't do it. So I was going to, and there was nobody going to stop me. And there were people around me that believed, and they gave me the opportunity to show them that I was worth the investment. All that time has led to a few things. So one is, my obligation is to be the person that gives other people a shot too. I look at willingness, what's their mindset like? Are they making promises and actually keeping them? What's the level of authenticity, integrity in this person? And, baggage doesn't mean as much, because there's a lot of tells in whether somebody's real serious. And I think people are worth giving a shot to. And I'd like to be a vehicle to help in that area. Enough people invested back in me that it's important. But sticking to a plan is important too. Understanding that you have a plan, but saying that you have a plan, the declaration. It's the same thing with the sobriety. I believe a big thing about staying sober is declaring that you're going to, declaring the things that you're going to do. Now, I really refer to 3 things that are super important to anything you do. And actually, it's part of my book that you'll see coming out here in the next year. But, what's your mindset going into it? What are you thinking about it? Where's your heart at? I've talked about the verse, being your I will attitude versus I want to. And even in the post on the community, I talked about what I will do and how I will go forward. The second thing is really around your action plans and the planning that you've done. And this all started before I was released, and it all led to this work that I just described for you. That was a journey, but with that action plan and by talking about it, and my mindset being one of declaration and absolute commitment to this plan, people around you invest in that because they see it and they believe it and they want to co-sign it. And the reason they feel like they can is because you've given them confidence, because the third part is you're not only willing to make promises, which means you're going to say you're going to do something, but you're going to keep those promises and do what you said you were going to do. It's amazing to me how many people are willing to sign up for people that just say they're going to do something and actually keep their stinking word. In this world, unfortunately, that's an anomaly. I wasn't really sure where I was going to go a lot with this video, but I guess there's a few key things in summary. One is, thank you to those in my current situation that absolutely is, in some cases, very heart tugging and hurtful and angering and all those things. And my community, just because it's there, invested in me without even knowing that was going on. And so thank you, all of you that did that. But at the same time, my role in this whole thing and my role in my journey is to make sure that I continue to make those plans, stick to those plans, invest the time, be willing, be honest, show what I'm going to do and declare it and do it. Be a community member that people actually want to invest in. Be somebody credible, be somebody that's there for other people. As they give to me, am I giving back or am I just taking everything? You can almost create for yourself a community just around you just by behaving in that way. It's quite astonishing. Try it. My milestone that was of yesterday was slightly diluted because of some real challenges going on in my life, but I reflect on it, and once again, as always seems to happen, I understand now the spiritual component of why it happened like it did, so that I can sit before you today and profess that yes, there's a spiritual component to all this stuff. It is baffling. It's hard to understand sometimes. No, life is not always going to be easy. And in fact, as I declared in the community post that I had in here, and please take a look at that. If you like what's there, please comment. But I'm not here for peace. I never was. I'm not really a man of peace. I'm pretty serious. I make jokes a lot just because I like joking and screwing around people that I trust. But I'm not really here for peace. My life's a fight. And for me to stick to the guns that I want to stick to and accomplish the goals I want to accomplish for, myself and for my kids and for that little girl, for her, I have to make these promises and I have to keep them. I got to stick to my plan. But this is a battle for me to make sure that I can accomplish what I said I was going to accomplish. It's not about peace. What it is about, though, is purpose. And one thing I'm sure of, no matter how I felt this morning or how I felt yesterday or how I felt 5 years ago when I climbed out of that bed, my bunk, got my stuff together, went through booking out the front door, met my dad. However I felt there, all of it's the same thing. I had a purpose and it was the same one, and I'm rolling towards it knowing full well that's exactly why I'm here and doing this. There is one that will hear this tonight. I don't know who you are and I don't know what's going on in your life at all. And if this is an encouragement, I know this is a little bit just not as organized as some of the videos I try to create, but it is from the heart. If there's somebody out there that's struggling that tonight might be watching this video, as I was watching videos last night, just be part of this conversation. Be mindful of what I'm talking about here. No, you're not alone, man. You're not alone. It's just the way it is. And I don't need to be hugging it out with you and doing any kumbaya crap to have you understand that I'll come alongside and fight with you and for you. We look at masculinity and we look at men's roles in life way screwed up these days. I don't have to dumb it down and wear dresses and lipstick to care about other people. I do care. I'm in it. If you're struggling tonight and you just need a sense of community, know that I'm with you. And, you can reach out to me at chrisandretro.com. If you need some support, I'll direct you. Again, I'm not a counselor in any way, but I certainly can try to find somebody to get you the advocacy and support you need. Or if you just need to know that you got somebody in your corner. I've been in a lot of places, not everything that everybody's been. I haven't had the worst life. I really haven't, but I did really screw things up for sure. And it caused myself a lot of pain. My life was not a bad lot. I want to make that clear. I hope that I don't come across on here talking about how troubled my life was. My life was only troubled because I made it a hot mess. That was on me. That was not because of anything anybody did to me. I just couldn't figure it out early enough. I wasn't smart enough to calm down for a second and recognize, whoa, something I'm not thinking right here. I just kept pouring it down because of my God complex. I appreciate you all. Thank you for the opportunity to even speak to an audience. That's a blessing in and of itself. I got a lot of work to do. I got a lot of work to do on me. I got a lot of work to do for others, for my children and the like. But I appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. Keep making progress on your plans. Make sure you're making plans. Make sure that those plans are actionable. They've got due dates. Make sure your mindset is correct. That says that you will do it no matter how you feel. If you're addicted to heroin or alcohol or whatever else it is, there are going to be days when it's going to call you and you have no idea why. You just can't believe you're in the car going to buy something that you know is going to ruin your family. Why are you doing that? And you don't know why. It starts way back ahead of time with prevention and making sure your mindset is correct, that you will go forward no matter what. You'll have a plan in place that if a crisis comes up, you know who you're going to call, and that person's going to drag you out of that mud. And then the last part, Make progress on your ability to make promises and keep them. The progress that I'm asking you to make, I promise you, when days when you're not feeling good, will be your guiding light, and you'll have probably created a community around you that will bail you out when you don't even have to ask them. It's just that you're present in that community, and that in and of itself lets you know you're not alone, and everything's going to be okay, even though it feels a little rough right now. Appreciate you all, actually. Everybody that takes time to pay attention to this, even a few people that made some comments that are a little weird. Man, I appreciate you. Thanks for giving me an audience to speak to. Keep making the progress I talked about. And until we talk again, please stay out of trouble.